Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite morning radio show on Saturdays, Money in the Law, with Jay.
Between 9 and 10.
Between 9 and 10 on my FM 101.3. It's called Money in the Law. I'm John Drohan, one of your hosts, along with Jay Marsden, the other and perhaps more talented and more, probably more polished host. That's some of the feedback that I get. I'm kidding.
I would say the more smarter, but it doesn't sound
smarter.
Doesn't sound really.
He's more smarter.
More smarter.
And then, of course, we're also joined by the illustrious Holliston Cable Access TV, led by Christian Bidet, who is, of course, you're the heart and soul of Holliston Cable Access TV.
Beating heart of Holliston Cable Access.
As we were saying just before, Christian and I actually did some work together, without you, which I didn't want to. I didn't want to kind of get into too much about that because I know you may feel a little sensitive about it. But it was we did the Holliston-Milford U12 softball game. We called that, which has to do with the S word, which is sports, which I'm more than happy to talk about.
Folks, you're going to feel a little bit ripped off because you paid for the whole seat, but you're only going to need the edge. Isn't that the line? Huh? Something like that? Yeah.
I'm telling you that you just say when. When, and you and I are going to start. We'll go around and we'll call any game anybody wants. We don't even need a microphone. We'll just call it.
This game called to you by by Money in the Law. That's right. That's exactly right.
Brought to you by Money in the Law.
We're calling cricket today down here in Ashland, right off the. They play cricket down by the Warren.
That's right. That's right. I'm like, we're driving by. I'm like, are those guys playing cricket?
I would call a cricket game just to use all the crazy words they have. Like that guy got a gobbledygook and the crazy stuff that they talk about.
I'd have to do some homework before
spickety wicket. That guy got 6 spickety wickets today.
So it's funny. So my wife's family is from England. So there's some cricket history from that. So my wife's uncle did actually play cricket. So one day he was explaining this to me.
Is he a batsman?
He was telling me. Yeah, he was. I think he was a bowler, right?
Oh, okay.
So
of course.
he was explaining this to me, and he goes, "Yeah, cricket's this game." And he's laughing. We'd had a couple beverages, and he said, cricket's a game, you start playing, and about a week later, the game's over. Yeah. And I'm like, no kidding. So
goes on forever,
so it's, I'd have to do some homework for cricket.
Yeah, that's not something that comes naturally to you. Born here in the U.S., what cricket is such a huge, you wake up, you watch a cricket match, a Pats game, maybe a couple of boxing matches.
Sometimes I'll have the Pats game and the cricket game on at the same time.
I know. And you keep the volume on the Pats game low. Right. You want to keep the volume on the cricket match higher.
Yeah, because there's more to hear.
Yeah, that's right. And I can't get somebody to watch a soccer game. Never mind watching a cricket match.
That's right. Because we just finished watching the World Cup.
And you got to go deep. And by the way, you got to go really deep in the Xfinity catalog to find the cricket match.
Oh yeah.
That's not something that jumps out at you.
It's like ESPN 8, right? The Ocho.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't even think it's on the Ocho.
Law and Order, cricket. There's so many options here. Which one do I? There's so many things to think about. So
I wonder if in the UK or in some country where cricket is big, if they have those sports bars where like all the cricket games are being played at the same time, and you just go and watch your particular team.
Oh, we were at a place on the Cape, and they had cornhole on TV as the highlighted, or whatever you want to call it,
the marquee event,
whatever the game on the big screen.
Game of the week.
It was it was like a Saturday afternoon. We're at a place in Hyannis, and which could be a sponsor. It's a phenomenal place, Tap City Grill. If you haven't gone, make it a point. And they had professional professional cornhole on the big screen.
Professional cornhole.
Yeah. And these guys are no joke. They're no joke. It's legit.
Do you remember when you turn on bowling and you're like, people actually are getting paid like bowling is they're professional bowlers.
Yeah.
Cornhole. I don't believe it.
I'm telling you right now. And by the way, and when you watch it, no one's standing around with a red Solo cup in their hand, right?
Yeah.
It's legit. And of course, and you know what this means, right? You know what it means. If you're watching professional cornhole, somewhere out there, right? There's you're going to bump into one of these guys at a barbecue, right? Yeah. And the guy's like, "What do you do for a living?" "Oh, I'm a professional cornhole player."
Cornhole, yeah.
And you're like, "Really? That's a real thing?" He's like, "Oh, it's a real thing." And then of course, look it up. For a fact, somewhere, some guy's developing, cornhole shoes, right?
Nobody,
because go ahead. You think that's not a thing? I'm telling you right now.
There's a whole line of cornhole.
There's cornhole sports-related industry.
So,
all right, you're going to have
nobody does it. I'll tell you right now. Right now, at this level, at this stage of the game, no one does it like that's their full-time job. I'm sure. So it's like, so what do you do for a living? Oh, I run an auto body shop. Oh, and I'm a professional cornhole player.
You don't think it's full-time?
I don't think
someone's making a living
yet? Not yet.
All right.
Are there officials? I mean, this guy.
It's like any other professional match you would imagine.
It's like the universe expanding. I can't get my head around it. I can't really comprehend how professional.
How it becomes,
and it's on TV.
Yes,
and it's on TV.
And guys like me are sitting there watching it.
Oh, you should have.
Hey, Joe, could you turn that up? That's this guy's.
What's the weight of those bean bags that he is? Oh, that's official weight. Yeah.
No, it's not official weight. There's a whole, there's a whole methodology. Are you going to go with Iowa corn as the cornhole bean bag? Are you going to go with Northern Iowa, Southern Iowa, Eastern Iowa? The corn is different.
You get a better flip.
The density of the corn in Northern Iowa, right? That makes a whole different throwing experience.
Because it's the land, right? It's got to sit, right?
It's got to sit. But you know what you need when you throw in the cornhole? You need cornhole gloves. You need cornhole throwing gloves, right? You don't think that's a thing, right? Come on.
You need one, right? You're right. From your throwing.
Well, no, you don't need what you need two. It's about balance. I mean, you're in your cornhole shoes with your cornhole gloves, and then of course you have your cornhole. You have sponsorships, so who's money
Dave's,
in the law.
Dave's Dairy Farm.
Not Dave's Dairy Farm. This match sponsored by Marsden Law, Money in the Law, Solaris Advisors. Law, right?
And then you need to have some kind of tagline that connects Marsden Law with cornhole, right?
Yeah.
Here you go. In the back of your office, you need a cornhole pit. Yeah.
Helping you dial in on your goals and objectives. Right?
What's it called? Right. Hit the target.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Helping you hit your target.
There's special cornhole polyurethane. There's special. I mean, come on. Where does it go? It goes everywhere.
A third of the show is gone, and we've talked about
entire industry.
Jay's fascination with cornhole.
No,
what's the name of it? What's it called? We need to do some research on this.
All right, this is a future topic. Actually, our future topic: the economics of cornhole. Right?
I heard that Eric Kuharich, didn't he play cornhole in college?
Yeah, he was what was he? NCAA.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, it was the NCAA. They picked it up at that point.
He was D2. He was D2.
He didn't make it D1. He didn't make it to D1. But I tell you, he's aggressive. I mean,
he's really good.
That's a thing. That's a thing. All right?
That's for you, Eric. That's for you, brother. Yeah.
Nothing but love for you, Eric.
All right, so. Are we going to talk about anything other than
Sure.
that? Yeah.
Let's talk about something.
So there's two things we need to talk about today.
All right, not cornhole. All right.
Aside from cornhole, because I think we beat that horse. We're going to talk about the importance of you had said this earlier. I'll see if I can catch this right. So the importance of when you're making your estate plan, or when you're making that you include your family members. That family members are that, and again. Do you have to? Because I've kind of heard the argument kind of both ways, but we're gonna push the argument of that it's better for everybody to kind of have this to bring everybody on board, so there's no surprises, and I think it's a transparency thing.
And this assumes we've talked on the show countless times. This assumes you can do it.
Yep.
Okay. This assumes that there's no dysfunction. Or we're trying to preempt some of that dysfunction. But we'll talk about that as far as sort of, don't you involve your family in your planning, and does that make sense, and is it what you want to do?
And then I wanted, the other thing I wanted to, which is, it goes right hand in hand with that. So if I'm doing some planning, right, this could go hand in hand with it. I wanted to talk about one thing in particular because it kind of came up in the week.
Yep.
Is a charitable remainder trust, and kind of how... I mean, and again, not everybody has the capability to do this, but we're going to talk about that. If you are in a situation where you potentially could use a charitable remainder trust, of how, I mean, it could be one of the most valuable things that you can do if your stars align and allows you to do it. So we're going to talk about that as well.
Fantastic. That's super exciting.
Ready to go?
That's legit. That's legit.
That's a real show.
That's a real show.
That's a real show.
Pull over right now. Actually, you probably are pulled over, because if you're sitting in traffic through downtown Holliston right now with the new lights that went on, you probably already stopped the traffic right now.
So let's talk about that for a second. So as many of you are aware of, in the greater Milford area, if you drive through Holliston had recently had lights put in their downtown, like real stoplights, real traffic lights.
Real red, yellow, green.
And it was, and I mean, well, you as a selectman, you were in the fight like neck deep in hand grenade pens for this whole thing, and finally it's come to fruition.
They flipped the switch this morning.
It's finally, and so today, well, no, they flipped it on Wednesday.
Oh, they put it on today.
Oh, today.
It went red, yellow, green today.
That's right. So today they're actually going.
Yeah.
So And as expected, traffic is backed up down each side of up and down Route 16, like you read about. Like,
well, and there was a little minor glitch, a little computer glitch this morning, a little technological malfunction this morning that they were working on, and I was standing out in front of my office watching all the traffic go by, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure this went exactly as planned, but we knew there'd be some growing pains the first day or so. And I walked down and I talked to the guys who were working on it. I talked to the engineers, and they were like, "Yeah, this thing was going the wrong way, and the X cable was not plugged into the Y cable the right way.
The arrow was pointing the wrong way."
That's right. That's right. Green was going up and yellow was going down. And as a result of it, it was kind of boxing things up a little bit. So they flipped off what was causing the problem. And oddly, it's kind of funny to see it happen. All of a sudden, everything got better.
Yeah.
And you could see it get better. I'm like, oh my God.
What time was this?
That was probably at 9:30 this morning.
All right.
Yeah,
So
so
a little bit. Yeah. So
a little bit after the action. But
after the action.
So patience. We'll get there.
And it becomes and again, they just got to figure out the timing of it. Yep. They got to figure out how long does this light go. I mean, I'm sure there's some very complex math problem that'll sort all that out.
Yep, that's right.
And you'll be able to get to work sometime before 10 in the morning.
Right. Yeah. That's right. So that's right. As long as you have to,
you don't have to go via Medway.
No, that's right.
To your office
via the Pike. Yep, it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah,
all right, so we're taking a quick break, or we jumping into it?
Okay, take a quick break.
All right, quick break. We'll be back in a couple of seconds.
For our
folks.
Sponsors, right?
All the sponsors.
Yeah, word from our sponsors.
Apparently, there's too many of them. So if they're tighten up the show
you know what?
bit.
We're going to take a break, but then we're going to come right back and dive into it. Dive in.
All right, you're here. Money Law, My FM 101.3, Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Main Effort Financial, Christian, HCAT, Man on the Con, and we'll be back in a couple seconds, and we'll kick it off with involving your family in charitable giving, even though your family might be charitably. They might be the charity. They could be the charity. Who knows? We'll be back in a couple of seconds.
Getting.
Stay tuned. All right, get back. Money in the Law, My FM 101.3, Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Man Effort Financial, Christian, Man on the Con, here for Holliston Cable Access Television. And we're talking about two things, family involvement in your estate plan and charitable remainder trust. Which one do you want to kick off with?
Family.
You like that? Of course.
Yep.
You always start with family first.
Yep.
I got it. Family first. So you mentioned, it's funny, you mentioned something that had come up during the week. A lot of the topics that we talk about on the show are things that do come up, things that we find, hands-on during the week.
It's like live action. It's like it just happens. It's fresh. It's like right there.
It's like money in that disclaimer, that disclaimer they have at the beginning of Law and Order, like none of these people are real, but it really is real. That's kind of the same thing, right?
We're just changing the names just to protect the innocent.
You got it. So the question was, do you get your family involved, or how involved do you get your family? Now, sounds a little funny. So, by nature, attorneys tend to be very secretive, right? We tell, people tell us stuff, and we say, look, attorney-client privilege holds, and we're not gonna share this with anybody. But every once in a while, clients come in, and everybody's on the same page, and families work together, and the stories that you hear about are not. It's not one of those situations. Everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction. And in those situations, and clients will ask us, they'll say, hey, should we get our family involved? We'll tell them, bring everybody.
Sure.
Bring the whole shoot match. We'll pack the conference room with whoever you want us to pack the conference room with, and we'll have a conversation around why the decisions are being made the way they're being made. Now, again, putting aside for 1 second the fact that not everybody wants to do that, but the bulk of the population that you don't hear about has really good relationships with family members, and there's no dysfunction, there's no animosity. They're not trying to hide everything. So in many cases, when clients ask us about this, I will tell you that we always encourage it because it makes the conversations much better. It makes everybody more comfortable with the conversations. We try to be very good in terms of explaining things to people in about as basic a language as we possibly can, so that everybody understands what's going on. And then later down the road, it avoids a lot of problems because people are somewhat party to why the decisions were made the way they were. Now, we will at some point, we always say to our clients, hey, look, do you want everybody here for this conversation, right? And the answer might be yes, the answer might be no. If the answer is no, we tell folks, just go sit out in our waiting room, right? We'll fine tune the last piece of this whole puzzle here. But when there's a conversation around who's going to get what job, it really works out if you can do it to have everybody be involved in the conversation.
The other part of it is, though, you as the legal advisor, your job is to kind of feel this out in the beginning. So when your client comes to you, they're going to say, hey, here's my situation, and here's what I want to get done. And these are the other players that are involved, and you're going to ask questions. So how's everybody get along? And if there's an issue, if there's some divorce, or there's some kind of animosity, then you're going to ask the question. You're going to say, okay, do you want them involved? Here's what happens if they're there. Just all the things you covered. Like they kind of get some. They don't necessarily get ownership in it, but they're privy to kind of the main conversation, so they get a better understanding. It could end up saving everybody time, so you don't have to then turn around and re-explain it, and you're not playing the telephone game where this is what the attorney said. So they kind of hear everything kind of from no pun intended, the horse's mouth.
Sure.
I mean, you're a horse.
Horse-like, yeah,
you're a horse.
Thoroughbred, right, what you want to say there.
But then at the same time, they may say, well, here's the issue, and you may say, okay, maybe it's better if we don't kind of put everybody in that particular room for this conversation, but bring them in at another time. So I like the idea of kind of doing your due diligence. Any person in an advisor relationship to be like, okay, let me get what would I do? Again, like kind of try and learn as much as you can, and then what would I do if I were you in this situation, right?
Well, and what it does too, and if clients have some concerns and they say, look, I want to bring other family members in, and I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, but I have some reservations about this dynamic or that dynamic, right? So clients will kind of lay the groundwork for us and kind of explain who the players are and what the personalities are like, and then what that does is it allows us to tailor our conversation, and it also allows us to ask questions that we already know the answers to, but in such a way that it looks like we're the ones taking on the heat, right?
Right.
We're the ones that can say, look, is there a reason that anybody shouldn't necessarily get their money right away? Are there divorce issues? Are there creditor issues? And you can flesh these things out and not have it look like the siblings are all pointing the finger at sister Mary or brother Tom, who's a degenerate gambler, or Mary who's just a spender and just can't hold on her money. And
can anybody think of any reason why we wouldn't do that?
That's right. But say it without pointing fingers at anybody, right? So then that way you're pulling away this issue of somebody's being judged, and then you get to sort of push the whole thing off on the attorney and say, well, if anybody's going to do the judging, let the attorney be the one who asks the questions, and then we can always frame it as, look, we're just asking questions so that we can address any issues that might come up down the road. And in a lot of ways, if the dynamic is such, this could be a sort of a pre-mediation session where we're putting everything in place now and we're getting everybody involved to avoid the issues that are going to come up down the road, right?
Yeah, and there always is. There's always going to be something that happens. There's always going to be there's going to be some contention, right? There's usually is, even if it's friendly. There's going to be some kind of, well, I don't understand necessarily why it's going to get broken down this way. I don't necessarily understand why so and so gets to live in the house under the current situation. Whatever the situation is, if everybody's there and everybody can kind of see it, and I do like that example of let me be the kind of the lightning rod on all this, and then what it enables people, or kind of promotes a better conversation, right? It promotes, and then and with any of these things, especially if you have a big group, it's always going to turn into some kind of it could always turn into some therapy session anyway.
That's right.
Well, and it's not that we're licensed therapists by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
but,
we don't. No, that's
but we. In the practice of financial planning, in the practice of legal planning, you're always going to deal with it's people, right?
Yeah,
you're going to deal with people, and you're going to deal with situations that you may have had experience in, or that are because a lot of times, especially in your case with the in the case of estate planning, a lot of it is similar. Like it's oh wow, you have this is your second wife and she has property, and so you've had kind of experience in dealing with things that are like the potential case.
Well, I'll tell you, in those situations that you just hit on, it's if you can do it, it's a phenomenal opportunity to be able to say, look, I'm bringing mom and dad in, or I'm bringing a husband and wife in, and they're both bringing their separate adult children, so that we can really make sure that everybody understands. And you hit on the point of real estate. Real estate's the thing that gets under people's skin. And we get a lot of phone calls, I can tell you, over the years, where clients come in and say, this is what happened 5 years ago, this piece of property that was my dad's ended up going to his wife. It's never the stepmother because it just didn't work out that way. It was the wife of my father, or the husband of my mother, and now we got left out. We got boxed out of the situation. Now we're completely. So when you're bringing a couple of groups together with two, again, we can have a conversation with our client, and the client can say to us, "I'd like to bring these people together. I'd like to bring them in. What do you think? Do you think it's a good idea?" And we'll tell you. We'll say, what are the relationships like? Is there a dynamic? Is there some tension? Let's bring everybody in if that works. And if it doesn't work, then that's fine too. We might say, look, let's bring in one side. Let's bring them in one at a time.
Yeah.
Let's bring them in. We'll do whatever clients want if they think that there's a possibility. Now, recognizing that there's situations that clients just say, look, and at the end of the day, I tell the client, you're the boss. It's your situation. It's your stuff. Do it whatever you want to do with it. And if you don't, and people in many cases will take the position that, look, when I'm gone, I don't care, nothing I can do about it. Other people say, look, I don't want to leave a legacy of dysfunction like that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to.
You want everybody to be happy.
That's right. That's right.
So,
if you can do it.
And again, we've talked about this on past shows about how. And we'll use the estate planning as the example. So let's use so if our example is, mom and dad want to talk about how we're going to divvy up this estate. What our estate plan, what we want to see happen. And there's children involved, there's adult children, maybe there's married children, maybe they're married or married and divorced, there's grandchildren involved. So if that's kind of our setting, we've always talked about, how great is it if you can do this, and you can do this when everybody's feeling good.
Yeah.
Everybody is getting along. Everybody is, okay, hey, you know what? We're gonna, I know no one wants to do this, right?
Yep.
This is going to be a bit of a hassle, but it would make us feel better. That's, if I'm the grandparent here, and I say it would make mom and dad feel better if we all kind of sat down and you understood what was going to happen, right?
That's
you guys, and you're all adults, and you understood what we want to do. And then if you have any questions or anything, that would be a good time to bring this up and kind of talk about it in front of everybody. And just so you know, we want to do this, we want everybody to be happy. We want to be fair. We want to make sure that everybody is taken care of. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an easy conversation.
Well, you bring up a great point. There's also an opportunity to say, let's just get everybody in a room and talk, right? I'm not even going to bring a pen and a piece of paper into that meeting. We're just going to sit down and we're going to talk, and we're going to make sure that not only mom and dad's wishes. But you're going to bring one of those
old tape recorders, like those old-fashioned.
Old school. I'm going to stick the microphone in somebody's face.
That's
go,
right.
The
one where you got to push play and record at the same time.
That's right.
One of
the
those
big wide button.
Right, with the thing that holds the microphone up.
Yep. So we'll do that. We'll say, look, let's just get everybody together and let's just talk. Let's not make any decisions. Let's just talk. Let's make sure everybody's on the same page. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll wrap it up. And then we'll have the clients in themselves.
Yep.
And we'll say, okay, now we just met with everybody. We talked about everybody. You know the players better than we do. We've laid out all the issues. Now let's talk about what your estate plan is going to look like. If it's important to you that those guys have a say or be heard, and then now we'll do what you want to do. And we'll referee that. We'll mediate that. We'll do whatever you want to call. We'll put everybody in a neutral corner, and then that way everybody feels like. In a lot of cases, it just feel like they were being heard.
Yeah.
And so if it's important, again, some people take the position. Look, it's my stuff. I'll do what I want to do with it. That's fine. We like that too. We'll take care of that. But if it's important to bring everybody together, there's an opportunity. And I think if you're working with somebody that you're happy working with, they should help you facilitate that discussion and then figure out how to move forward after that discussion happens.
And we're talking about, and a lot, again, the discussion is usually going to come down to one thing, which is money, and in whatever shape or form. Money in the form of the value of property that we're talking about, or the value of the estate, or the amount of money, the stocks, or portfolio that that they have. It's going to come down to kind of, because that's the legacy that I'm leaving, right? So, what kind of goes hand in hand with the estate plan, or actually kind of comes before the estate plan in our practice and yours as well, is the retirement plan, right?
Yeah.
So people are going to say, well, hey, listen, you know what? Hey, John, do you know a good estate planning attorney, because we want to get our will and everything squared away? And I say, of course I do. Tune in on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. And so that, and I'll say, okay, but before we start going down that road, we need to make sure that your retirement plan is set. Because, and I tell my clients this all, my job, I have one job. My job is to make sure that you don't run out of money.
Yep.
Like, that's it. So you're going to retire, you're going to live to age 110. You know, that's, everybody projects out to 110. And God willing, they all live to age 110. And that when on your 110th birthday, you still have money in the bank, and then, you know, then you've won the game. You've essentially won the retirement game. Yeah. So my job is to make sure you don't run out of money in retirement. So that plan of how you're going to generate income and pay for everything from now until the day you die, or the day both you and your spouse die, is that will supersede the legacy piece. Now, that said, people may say, I don't care. I want to make sure I leave something for my kids. And then there's the situations where people have, you know, if they have people who are dependents, like still have, like, you know, adult dependents, special needs people or something, that's a different animal. But we're talking about, you know, someone says, I don't care. I want to leave something, right? I want to leave something. So that's got to be part of the plan. That's got to be part of that retirement plan. So the question is, okay, what do we need to do to make sure that you can retire? And then how does that happen? How is there a legacy, you know, whether or not you want to leave one? How do we make sure that that happens as well?
All right. I love it. I love it.
You do love it.
I do.
You do. All right, let's
take a break, and then we're going to come back, and it's all about charitable remainder trusts. Now it's exciting.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Now we're getting somewhere.
You're getting somewhere because you're on the road. You're going to somewhere, but stay with us. We'll be right back. And we're back. Oh,
come on. We talked about this before. We're back. Money and Law, My FM 101.3.
We never talked about
Jay
it.
Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Man After Financial,
talk
Christian from HCAT, and we just wrapped up talking family, talking about bringing everybody in if it works, and if it doesn't work, and you think you want to, you know, do a little sort of a pregame, you know, get everybody in, talk about things, and see where the fires start. That's fine. We can talk about that.
See where the fires start.
Oh, it happens, and it happens. But part 2 is going to be charitable remainder trust. You were hot to trot about those.
Well, I was, because, you know, it was a good for us to review them. As I said, we've had a case that happened this week. But so just to be clear, kind of what a charitable remainder trust is. So a charitable remainder trust is it's when someone will donate money to a charity in the form of a charitable remainder trust. But the charity's not going to get that money until the donor, the donor of the asset, passes away. So this is how it works. Essentially, the charitable remainder trust is an irrevocable trust. This is for all you people who study what Jay studies. Nice. Is an irrevocable trust. So let's use the example. Let's say I have a significant, and the reason I will do this, the reason I will use a charitable remainder trust as opposed to just donating the money to charity, is because I may need that money to do something for me right now. I may need that money to, you know, unless I'm just, you know, it's money that I don't need to generate income. I don't need it for anything. My family doesn't need it. I don't need it to be part of my estate plan. I'm just going to donate it to a charity because I want the tax break and because I want the charity to, you know, buy me, you know, front row seats to the Patriots or something like that, right? Nice. So, although that's not why people would donate.
Illegal, but
there's some legalities. However, so what happens is I'll put this money into an irrevocable trust, this charitable remainder trust, and then what that trust does is that trust uses that asset to then generate income for me, right? So let's see, we use an example. Let's say I have $500,000 and I put it into the charitable remainder trust. Now that charitable remainder, any income that charitable remainder trust generates, I take as part of my income. So now this is part of my, you guessed it, my retirement plan, right?
Okay.
So if I'm in that retirement, so I can take the income anytime, but I'm going to use this as part of my retirement plan because this is income that I'm going to get and I'm going to use. But now once I've put it into this charitable remainder trust, what kind of trust was it?
As an irrevocable, I
think it's irrevocable.
Okay.
You are correct.
I wasn't paying attention.
So you were really paying attention. So what happens? So tell us what an irrevocable trust does.
Well, generally speaking, when you do it, you can't undo it. That's the basics. Right
that's
there.
the IRA.
That's the IRA of the irrevocable trust. That's right.
So I donate them so that once it goes in there, it's not coming out. And what I would always describe to my clients is once you put something, whether it be anything in an irrevocable trust, it's no longer yours. You've given it to so now it's the property of the trust, right?
Well, yeah, the property of the trust handled by the trustee.
Handled by a trustee. So we'll get to that, right? So we'll get to so as with all trusts, there is a person who is in charge, or a group who is in charge, or some sort of entity that is in charge of managing that trust. And inside the trust, there's instructions, and this is exactly what's supposed to happen with what the contents of this trust. And that person, as you just said, is the trustee.
Ooh.
That trustee is responsible, and that trustee has a certain type of responsibility. It starts with an F and rhymes with fiduciary. See if you can guess out there, folks.
All right. So my father loved this part of the show. So, that's the beauty of the trustee, is that not only are they not you, right? Somebody else, you're not involved in most cases, but they have a fiduciary obligation or responsibility to follow the rules of the trust, because in that trust somewhere is a line that says, oh, and guess what? At the end of all of this, this person, this entity gets this.
Yep.
And so the fiduciary's job is to make sure that those beneficiaries' interests are protected.
And that's a great point, is the fact that it's not you. So if in an irrevocable trust as opposed to a revocable trust, again, I don't want to step on your toes.
Please, go ahead.
Right?
You're doing great. You're doing great. Yep, you're doing great.
Right, I'm feeling good, right?
That's right.
So
I'll only let you get so far. That's good. You're good.
Just make sure you listen to the disclaimer at the end.
That's right. That's right.
So in a irrevocable trust, you cannot be the trustee, because then means you would have control over the assets of the trust, because that's what the trustee does. But in a revocable trust, then you can be the trustee.
Yeah.
You can be the trustee of your own trust. But we're talking about the charitable remainder trust, which is irrevocable, and someone else is the trustee. So here's the cool part. So remember, I put in my $500,000, and that $500,000 now belongs to the trust. And with all trusts, they not only have a trustee, but they also have a beneficiary, right?
Yep.
So in this case, in the case of the charitable remainder trust, who is the beneficiary? It's a quiz. He's going to get it. He's going to.
My guess is it's some type of charity.
There you go. There you go. There you go. You studied for this quiz.
Oh,
so in and hence the name Charitable Remainder Trust. So the beneficiary is the charity. So now I put in our example, I put in $500,000.
Great.
Yep.
Yep.
And I want to give, let's say I want to give $500,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. We use them as an example, right?
Yeah.
So the Make-A-Wish Foundation, I've donated $500 into my Charitable Remainder Trust, and they're the beneficiary. Do they get to use that money right away?
No.
They do not.
No,
You're right. No, they don't.
Yeah, right. No.
No. They don't.
Yeah, totally.
They don't get to. So this is how it works. They don't get that money until what happens? Until I die. Okay. So in our example,
sad, but they're
sad,
happy.
but then they're sad. They wipe the tear away, and they get their check.
That's right.
So. And the gift is what goes in that trust is that $500,000. Until I die, that $500,000 can generate an income for me,
Sure.
right? That can generate. Now, let's talk about the taxation of this, right?
I get a sense that there's some math coming. At some point.
There's not super complicated.
All right.
So now, because it's an irrevocable trust, and because that trust beneficiary is a charity, that means I can never get that money back. It means no one from my family can get that money. So that means that money is now what? It has left my. What kind of planner are you?
Yes.
That money has left my estate. So now, let's say that money contributes. Let's say that I may have won the lottery, right? Or I rediscovered, a better way, a better mousetrap, and I have a sizable estate.
Pile of dough. All right.
I've just taken out $500,000 that perhaps will lower my estate tax bill, or put me in a place where I'm not going to pay estate tax on that. So that's not the case, but that's in our example, it's off of my estate, and I don't pay estate tax on it. Now, because it's a charitable remainder trust, hence, and the operational word being charity, and I've donated it to this, what do I get to do? If I were to write a check, put it this way, if I were to write a check to a $500,000 check to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, what do I get to do?
Oh, you take a deduction.
I get to take a tax deduction.
Yes, you
right?
do.
So if I'm in the 35% tax bracket, about how much is that? Maybe about $90,000 and change.
100, yeah, sure. Yeah.
So here I am. I've just taken a tax deduction of upwards of north of $90,000 because I just wrote a check to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. But wait a minute. I'm putting this into a charitable remainder trust, so they're not getting the money just yet. Doesn't matter. As soon as I donate to the charitable remainder trust, that year I get to take my $90,000 plus tax deduction.
Very exciting.
I mean, it's very exciting because that's a significant tax deduction.
Oh yeah, but there's better stuff coming. That's why I'm tamping down my excitement because there's better stuff coming.
Okay, so what have I done? I've taken a big tax deduction for this year. I've given money to a charity so that everybody loves me.
You feel good. I feel good. You're invited to all the black tie stuff.
That's right.
They love you.
But now, because it's in this trust is going to generate income, as I said before, for me, right? For me.
Who better?
So now I can take income. So and again, depending upon how the trust is made up, I could take a fixed income amount, or I could take a variable income amount, depending upon what the performance of the trust. Again, based on the trustee. The trustee has a responsibility of investing this in a particular way. So now I'm going to take income from the Charitable Remainder Trust. What kind of income am I taking from this?
Ooh. To you?
Yeah. What I mean, but what's my taxation on that income?
None.
Well, actually, there could be tax in that I could get if there's any appreciation, I could pay the capital gains tax.
Right. Let me ask you this. It's going to depend partly on what choice you choose. Right?
That's right. That's right. All right. So depending upon what choice I choose, I could end up paying capital gains tax on gains of any of my. But what I'm not going to be paying, I'm not going to be paying income tax on this income. So here I go. So now everybody's like, well, wait a minute. Why don't I do this? Why doesn't everybody do this? Well, remember, you've just written a check and given away $500,000. Go do that. I'll tell you what. Write a check for $500 and go give it away to somebody. Right. It's not as easy. It's not as easy as it seems, right? So, but if you're in a situation where, and again, we're talking about how we're talking about like estate planning, and one of the situations you could find yourself in. This is if you let's say you're charitably inclined, and part of this you want to use for income.
Sure.
You've thought through. Let's say you also not only you're charitably inclined but you have people that you want to leave a legacy to.
Yep.
So you've considered that, and there's probably other assets that you have to be able to donate to, or to be able to leave to your siblings, or to leave to your children, or whatever your estate is, whatever your estate plan. So you may have the capability to do that. This could be one of those things where you get a huge tax deduction. You are gonna, because what's the alternative if I didn't donate it to the charity, right? Let's say I just took that money and I started generating an income, right? I started generating money from it. Let's say the $500,000 wasn't cash. Let's say it was a piece of real estate, right? So let's say it was a house. So let's say I own the house, right? Let's say I bought it for $100,000, so I have a $400,000 gain.
Right.
If I just sold the house and started generating income from it, I'm going to pay a capital gains tax on that $400,000. So now I avoid paying that capital gains tax on said property. I get a tax deduction, and I get to generate income.
Well, you brought up a good point, which is if you do you mentioned cash, right? Mm-hmm. You write a check. If you do a charitable remainder trust with securities or property that has a low cost basis on it, and then the property or the securities get sold inside the charitable remainder trust, do you pay the capital gains?
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't. So that's it. So I avoid paying the capital gains tax.
That's right.
Yeah. So thank you for bringing that in.
I mean, the cash. People think about the cash all the time, but for people who have securities that they want to deploy or redeploy in such a way that it generates revenue for them, yes, if you do it and you take the tax hit, now you're starting with, instead of a $500,000,
$440, right?
That's right. So this way you get to use the whole 500 goes to work.
And so therefore, right? If I'm taking, think about it, right? Just using that example, if I'm taking 5% income off of $440,000, that's what is that? That's $22,000 a year, right? If I'm taking 5% income off of $500,000, that's $25,000. That's real money.
Yeah, that's right.
That's $3,000. All right. So there's a couple guys we need to make sure are staying with us. Kaharich, you're on board right now. Kaharich he's a bank guy, so I think he's okay.
He's right in his wheelhouse. Yeah. Right in his wheelhouse.
Campersall, and you know what? Campersall's been working overseas, so there may be some jet lag involved, right?
Now that he has some overseas property.
Who else? Higgins.
No,
Steven,
he's still in
listen.
bed. He's still in bed. He's still in bed. He's still in bed.
That's right.
He's still in bed.
Anybody else you can think of?
Yeah, Sawyer's.
Oh, Sawyer.
Yeah, this is right in his wheelhouse.
Sawyer's, you know what he's doing right now? He's taking notes. So, Kenny, we'll go over this again with you.
By the office. We'll talk about it in person.
The three of us will talk about it. Yeah, actually, Sawyer's and I will be spending, we're going to a wedding this weekend together.
Fantastic. Drive down together, listen to the show.
That's right. All right, so back to this. So when if you have and again, it's not for everyone. It's not for every circumstance. But in the situation where if you and you have to be wanting to donate this to charity.
Yeah, you have to be charitable. First and foremost, you have to be charitably inclined. First and foremost,
because at the end of the day, if you're not charitably inclined and you say, "Oh, I want to do this," but let's say you also want to leave a legacy.
That's right.
And then they're like, "Well, okay, so there goes that $440,000 or that $500,000 Cape House that we had been talking about for the last 30 years,
right?
And you just you gave it to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and we don't have anything." And you're well, unless you're trying to teach a hard lesson.
Well, you really sort of have to have some understanding that you're closing the door to other options, obviously, with this money when you do something like that.
Anything with an irrevocable trust,
that's right?
That's important.
But you're basically saying, look, this is money that I want to your point. I want to take these securities. I want to take this asset, whatever it is. I want to donate. I'm going to make a donation to charity anyway. So I want to make the donation to charity, but I want to get the benefit of the asset while it's in there to the best that I'm allowed by the tax code. And then I want the charity to get the money at the end of the day anyway, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And so back to our part A of our show, where if that's what you want to do, and there's other players involved, like for instance, if there's children involved and you're talking, then this is something that may not be a bad thing to have the professional or the attorney or whomever is kind of managing this to explain.
Yeah,
right.
This isn't a let me Google this approach. No, this involves getting your financial advisor involved. This involves getting your tax person involved.
That's right.
And it involves getting the lawyer involved.
That's right.
And so it's the three folks at the table that are going to sit down and advise you through this, and probably highlight any number of times the pros and cons to the approach to make sure that you understand exactly what it is you're doing. And you want to this is not something you want to sort of wander into lightheartedly and say, hey, we think this might work. This is something that you really have to sit down and get the pencil out, sharpen it hard, and figure out, does this make sense for you? Because you're closing a number of doors after you do something like this.
Yeah, because like you said, these are decisions that you can't undo.
No, that's right.
I mean, or to undo them could be costly, or could end up, potentially, but most of the time you can't undo it. You can't unring that bell, and if you're not, and if you do this kind of haphazardly, or if you do this hastily, you could put yourself in a serious position where nothing works.
Well, yeah, you've done something that you can't undo. You got none of the tax benefits that you wanted to get. The income's taxable to you. Those you don't want to do all the wrong things for each of those aspects. You want to make sure that you do it in a way that if you're going to do it, obviously like anything, do it right, because you're not messing around, and it's a sizable part of your portfolio, or it could be a significant piece of your investment. And I think where you see it done more often than not is on the actual let's avoid the capital gains tax on the securities and redeploy as much of your money as possible into something else, so that all of your money is at work as opposed to some of your money being at work. That's right. I think that's really the piece that you want to focus on. So we're at the tail end here. 45. We were instructed today to
because we have a 15-minute disclaimer.
It's a 9-minute disclaimer, and then it's a couple of commercials in there. So I know. I think
it's okay. It's all right. All right. So you know what? All right. We're in the dog days of summer right now.
Yes, we are.
So
we're in stoppage time right now.
Everybody needs to continue to have a great summer.
Yes.
All right. If you haven't been to Cape Cod, go to Cape Cod, right? And if you happen to see,
if you go to Cape, don't sit near people on the beach. All right? Give everybody plenty of room. Spread out on the beach, everybody. Spread out, and turn your radios down, please.
And, right. Use have like personal music, and that's it.
That's right.
Use your
headphones. In your space.
And make sure you're putting on your sunscreen. Right. Make sure you're staying hydrated. Right.
Yeah.
Hydration. What any other? That's the most important stuff.
That's the most important stuff.
And and be safe. Be safe in the water. Right. Be safe in the water.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.
We'll see everybody next week on Money in the Law with Jay Marsden, John Drouin, WMRC, MyFM 101.3, Hollis and Cable Access TV with Christian. We will be back next Saturday.
Yeah, see you then.